And welcome inside the Sports Guys podcast here. Very special edition today presented by our friends over at Bangtail Whiskey, MitchMax.com, and of course, Hank Jr. Productions. Always love talking football. Never too early to talk football. And to do that, he's one of the best writers, one of the best guys, analysts in the state of Texas. He does podcasts and magazines. He does it all. Yours truly alongside Nick Canizales. Pleased to welcome in the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, which is the Bible of high school football, college football, and your pro teams are in Texas. As good friend Greg Tepper joins us here on the Sports Guys Podcast.com and on the YouTube channel live right now. Tep, what's going on, buddy?
Boys, I appreciate you guys having me on. I always know when football season's getting close because Brandon texts me. That's when I know. It's like an alarm clock going off for me. It's like, all right, I guess I probably better think about football. Brandon's here, so yeah, happy to join you guys.
It's always good to be here. And I tell you what, I picked up another job too. I'm going to be the voice of the Vider Pirates coming up this year. Cajun Country Radio.com. Yours truly, my good friend Robbie Lynn Steptoe, and of course our good friend Kevin Bricado, starting August 26th at the Silsbee Tigers. Hey, let's start there. We all know how that game went down last year, 51-48. Vider pulling that out. Tough district. Now we'll say I've been in a few practices this year, and Tep, you know, one of the toughest offenses to defend is the old school slot T. You've got to have the right personnel to run it. I talked to Coach Matthews the other day. What can you expect in this district now, and kind of some early prognostication now? Because we know this 4A district with Vider, Lumberton, LCM, Huffman, and Splendora is going to be very tough, Tep.
Yeah, no, this is when you look at 10-4A Division I, it's brutal, and there's no breaks. You know, coaches say that every year, and regardless of their district, they could be playing the Little Sisters of the Poor, and they would say, oh, you know, there's no weeks off in this district. But I mean it here in District 10-4A Division I. You know, it used to be. What's funny is that this is really a group of teams that have risen quickly through the ranks. I mean, Little Cypress Mauriceville is the obvious example here when you're talking about what Eric Peavy was able to do in just year one, taking a team that was, you know, down in the dumps and really hadn't won much of anything and taking them to an 11-win season was simply remarkable. Lumberton's been a team that has been steadily rising as well. Huffman Hargrave, very tough. Splendora, I think, is going to be a sleeper there, especially with a lot coming back defensively. And then there's Livingston. Livingston's another team that I think could be knocking on that door if they're able to kind of put some things together on the offensive side. You know, for Vider, this is a program that I think has kind of found its footing, has kind of decided that they know what they're going to be. And you know, you mentioned that the old school slot T is the devil. They say it, and this is going to be a team in Vider that's going to be good at like where it matters. This is going to be a team that's going to be really good up front. I feel like they're going to have an opportunity to make some to be special up front. You know, they ran into what ended up being a buzzsaw in Tyler Chapel Hill last year in the first round, gave them a run. But this is a Vider program that I think could be ready for a leap. Another thing that's really interesting to me about Vider, not to turn this into an entire Vider podcast, but their JV went 9-0 last year, an undefeated JV. That type of stuff, if you want to talk about filling in gaps, they don't have a ton of gaps, but if you want to talk about filling them in with quality pieces, there's ample reason to believe that there's help on the way for an already very strong Vider squad.
Yeah. Hey, I want to tap the other district in 4A. Of course, you got number 4 West Orange Stark, number 9 Silsbee. Those are the top two juggernauts in that district. You know, Hampshire Finette's going to be really good. Then you know Orangefield, Hart Jefferson, and so forth. But the top two teams, West Orange Stark, Silsbee, they have playmakers all over the field. What can we expect in that district?
Yeah, it's going to be fast. I'll tell you that much. There's a lot of speed in this district. You know, West Orange Stark starts as I think the understandable favorite here. New coach there with Hiawatha Hickman taking over for the legendary Cornell Thompson, and that'll be interesting to watch. You know, how quickly do they adjust to a new voice in the room for the first time in like forever. First time since Dan Ray Hooks left. So that's something to keep an eye on West Orange Stark. But, you know, they are loaded for bear. They were very young offensively last year. And then, of course, that classic Blue League defense back in the mix. Silsbee is going to be another team that I think is way better than their record indicated last year. They were a team that I think had some hard luck as the season went on, but they bring back a ton from last year's, and we know they're going to be dynamic. The team that's really interesting me in this district is Jasper. Jasper, we talked with Kendrick Crumity, the new coach there at coaching school there in San Antonio this past weekend, and you can feel in talking with him that they've got the guy who's got the passion for the program, and he's an alum, and he wants to be old school Jasper. He wants you He wants you to know you played Jasper the next morning, okay? They want to hit. They want to be physical. They want to be fast. And when Jasper is able to get going, I mean, it's been a minute since they've been like that, but this is a team that's got toughness and you don't want to play historically. You think back, last year 6-5, not necessarily up to their standards, but just a few years ago, this was a 12-1 squad. This is a program that has history of being strong and could play spoiler to any one of those top two there in West Orange Stark. Hampshire for next in that mix as well. I'd probably draw a gap there. Keep an eye on Liberty maybe as a sleeper if they can find some holes, fill some holes defensively. But West Orange Stark Silsbee looks like the 1-2 with Jasper as the sleeper there.
Sleeper, it's a good pick, no doubt. Hey, let's stay right there in the region here near us. I mean, this change of the guard. We always say the Port Neches Groves Indians coming off a great year last year, 8-5. 2-3 rounds deep into the playoffs, beat Montgomery, which for a lot of people, I went to that playoff game and definitely not a shocker to most, but the fact they hung in there, ran their spread. Cole Crippen, 35 touchdowns accounted for last year. The change of the guard being Jeff Joseph coming in, the excitement at the reservation down here, Tep, is amazingly just beautiful down here. I work there, love the reservation. P&G Indians, very tough, 5A, tough district, but I will say this, Jeff Joseph coming in brings a lot of credentials, Tep.
Yeah, but what's his family ever done? Like, what's the Joseph family ever done in high school football coach? Of course, I'm joking. His father, the great Gary Joseph and Katie, and then his grandfather, of course, a legendary coach in his own right. He's got bona fides. And he has been, from what I understand, I haven't talked with Coach Joseph, but from what I understand, he's really kind of bided his time. He's been a hot name in coaching circles for a while, but he's kind of bided his time and waited for the right job. Well, P&G is the right job. You want to talk about a first head coaching job to jump into one of the most decorated and respected programs in Texas high school football. That's quite a leap there. But he's going to be ready, and he inherits a squad that, last year I thought had a really nice year, bringing back a fair amount of their offensive line, which usually when the offensive line is going for P&G, they're going to be pretty good. And having a QB1 is going to be helpful as well. What's really interesting about this district is kind of the smashing of two districts and two regions that they put together. The team that everybody's going to be talking about in that district is going to be understandably Fort Bend Marshall, a program that's made deep playoff runs over the past couple of years with Coach James Williams, who does such an unbelievable job there. Fort Bend Marshall's an interesting case. They were a team that went the dreaded 10-1 last year. An undefeated record in the regular season, and then up first round playoff game, they get upset by Barbers Hill, get doubled up actually. And one of the things that we talked with James Williams at the coaching school about this, they were in a district that, quite frankly, they just overmatched everyone. They were playing a bunch of teams from Houston ISD, and they were just way better than everyone else. So they'd go out there and they'd hang up scores that were like 62-0, 55-3, and just drill people. But then they played a team like Barbers Hill in the first round of the playoffs. They got punched in the mouth and they weren't ready for it. They'll be ready this time because this District 9-5A Division II, is dangerous. It's very dangerous. I think really in a lot of ways, top to bottom, most especially I would say in the top six. Fort Bend Marshall and Port Neches Groves, probably the two top teams. Texas City is going to be no slouch as well. Another team that's going to have plenty of toughness and a lot of offensive skill coming back for them. For Nederland is another interesting squad. They're a team that needs to replace some pieces on the offensive line, but all the fast guys are back. So that's kind of the what do you value there? That's kind of going to be the interesting clash whenever you get to kind of the Bum Phillips Bowl, Mid-County Madness, when P&G and Nederland meet up. Can Nederland's trench play get up to speed in time to play one of the very best teams in the trenches in that region in P&G? And then you add in a team like Dayton. And Dayton, you may be thinking, okay, well, this is a team that went 2-8 last year. What exactly do they have to show for it? I think they're a hard luck 2-8. I think they're better than their record indicated. I think they've got a really good core coming back defensively that could give people a lot of trouble. They're a team that if you're caught glancing at their last year's record, you're going to get caught. And I'd even lump in Galena Park. The Yellow Jackets had a really nice year last year. Made it to the playoffs. Made it to the playoffs, which was a huge deal for them there at GP. I think they're on the rise. And so, you're talking about a 6-7 deep district that is going to be very dangerous. And for P&G and for Fort Bend Marshall, two squads that have legit hopes of making deep playoff runs, you feel like that's going to pay dividends for them down the road whenever they do have to play those really tough teams in Region 3.
Speaking of tough teams, let's go to 21-6A. North Shore, always dominant powerhouse always. You know, Tascasita, Westbrook's picked 5th, Beaumont United picked 8th. What do you see out of that? I mean, can anybody up? You know, can they knock off North Shore? I mean, until you knock off North Shore, they got to be the favorite every single year
in that district for sure. And actually coming away from coaching school and talking with a number of coaches at North Shore, they feel like, you know, we rank them, I believe, number 2 in the state in Dave Campbell's Texas football to start the year. And we have Westlake number 1. Westlake's won 3 straight state championship games. State championships, I think they have to be number 1. Coming out of talking with coaches at coaching school, 2 might be a little light for North Shore. This might be a really dangerous team. They're going to be very good everywhere. Remember, they won a state championship with a freshman quarterback last year. Crazy. The issue for a team like Westbrook and a team like United is that district is so top heavy. With North Shore, Atascocita, C.E. King, and then Summer Creek, who was one of the great surprises in the state last year, making it all the way to the regional semifinals or regional final last year in Division II. For Westbrook, they what they need to do is find a way, especially to find a quarterback and find some skill position in the back end of the defense. If they do that, they're going to have an opportunity to knock off one of those Houston area teams to get into the mix. You know, United, it's still a build there. They're still figuring things out. I think they're going to be pretty strong up front, but I think they're still dealing with some depth issues. If they're able to figure those out, they could play spoiler. But the issue is, I mean, you got 4 teams that won 10 games in this district last year. That's insane.
That's great. That is
21-6A is one of the deepest districts, like one of the most top-heavy districts in the state. And so for a team like Westbrook, breaking through is tough. But the good news is if you take care of business, beat teams like Humble, although keep an eye on them. I really like that coaching staff down there. Keep Kingwood and United, for example, you beat those 3. All you need is 1. All you got to do is catch C.E. King on a bad night or go out there and beat Summer Creek, and you get in the playoffs. So it's right there. They're on that cusp. But that gap between 4 and 5 may be wider than maybe any other place in the state.
Got to ask you about Austin Westlake too. Of course, Todd Dodge, 7 state championships. Now as a consultant over at P&G and legendary coaching career, 232 wins. Amazingly, one of the just most winningest coaches in the state of Texas. Of course, you're always going to have talent. We know skilled guys, great players. Like I said, just going out and breeding some of the best athletes in the world. How much of an effect, or if any effect at all, the change of the guard there with Todd retiring? Of course, you know, P&G gets a lot of great experience there. The consultation side to help first-year head coach Jeff Joseph. What can we expect from the Chaparrals? And Austin Westlake still has to be considered one of the top teams in the state.
They're going to do what they do. I mean, Westlake is going to do what they do. Now, look, this is going to be a different looking Westlake team in a lot of ways. You know, they go from an offensive-minded guy in Todd Dodge, one of the very best offensive minds in the state, to one of the very best defensive minds in the state as they promote Tony Salazar, who has been just one of the very best defensive minds in Texas high school football for going on about a decade now. I mean, he's a star, and this was a matter of time before he was going to get his head coaching job. He just gets it there at Westlake. They are replacing a blue chip quarterback in Kate Klubnik, and you know we saw Westlake at 7-on-7. Of course, that's underwear football. It doesn't necessarily tell you a whole lot, but you know there may be some growing pains at the quarterback spot. Now, look, they're going to be excellent up front on offensively. They're going to have absolute menaces on the defensive side. Their defensive front is going to be one of the very best in the state. They have a blue chip Notre Dame commit at wide receiver and Jaden Greathouse. You just throw the ball up to him. I mean, look, when I say that Westlake is like maybe they take a half step back, what I mean is like maybe they might have to struggle to get past the state semifinals. You know what I mean? Like that's the standard there. I don't anticipate any sort of drop off from Westlake. They're the number 1 team in Dave Campbell's Texas football. It kind of depends on whether they go to the Division 1 or Division 2 bracket. You know, last year they played Division 2, beat Denton Geyer. The year before they played Division 1, beat South Lake Carroll. This year we project them to go back to Division 1 just because of teams like teams that are being bumped up from 5A, including Buda Johnson and Dripping Springs, pushing their enrollment number up. So they could go Division 1, which means they could have a state semifinal date with Galena Park North Shore, which would be certainly worth the price of admission. But they got to get there first. They got to figure out a couple of their pieces before they get there. But look, make no mistake, it's Death Taxes in Westlake, and they are going to be a program to be reckoned with, and arguably the team to beat in 6A.
Hey, 3A Division 2 around here, Newton Eagles. It's I was going to say a franchise, a school that, you know, historically always good each and every year. And I mean, they got, again, a lot of people back. They have I don't know what's going on in Newton, what they feed them, but it's always everybody at every position is just very good, and they know their positions.
Yeah. I think what they do, I don't know if maybe it was W.T. Johnston who went out there and planted an athlete tree, and then they just go out there and pluck another one every single year. I mean, they've always got dudes. They've always got dudes, and this year is going to be no different. I mean, they bring back a fair amount of experience from last year as well. 14 starters from last year's squad. This is an Eagles team that, has eyes on state championship, and for good reason. I mean, they start the year number 3 or number 4, I believe, in Dave Campbell's Texas football to start the year, and for good reason. This is a program that we think has an opportunity to make a very deep run. Last year they ran to Wascom in the 3A Division II regional semifinals. That's a really good Wascom team. This is going to be a team that's going to be, for a 3A Division II team, I think it's actually going to be pretty deep. They've got a number of playmakers on both sides of the ball, and can rotate in guys in a way that other teams can't. But this is going to be a team that's got experience. They've got senior leadership. They're the favorite in District 12. And arguably, District Region 3 is tough, right? You're going to have to get through teams like Dangerfield, Wascom. Elysian Fields is going to be pretty darn good. I think DeKalb has an opportunity to make a deep run. West Rusk, you're dealing with some really good squads, but there's no reason to think that Newton can't contend with anybody in Region 3. If they get out of there, then you're dealing with a team. I think Region 3 may be a favorite of Region 4 in a semifinal, like hypothetically, but this is a Newton team that has eyes on AT&T Stadium, and for good reason.
I want to go back to the Houston area too, because I spent about 3 years there in my coaching career over there. Great, just a great district with all the Pasadena schools: Pasadena Memorial, Pasadena Dobie, Pasadena Sam Rayburn. This is going to be interesting to see because you've had a lot of coaches in your coaching rankings, head coaching changes online there. Damon Stafford now goes to Dobie. Kevin Bernathy's now at LaPorte. This whole district now up and down. Deer Park has had some changes over the last few years since I believe Chris Massey retired too at the same time. Talk about, and they just laid on the line to people out there. This is one of the most kind of hidden, don't want to say, secretly exposed districts out there, but you find some of your best talent, Tep. And I spent 3 years at Pasadena Memorial, some great kids, great athletes, and just some very dark horse type talent. Talk to people how dangerous this district is, especially now with the head coaching changes.
Yeah, you said dark horse, and I think that's a really good way to put it. This is a district that I think is not going to have that kind of sizzle. I don't think it's got one of those programs in there that you go, oh, like, for example, they're District 22. District 21 is the North Shore District. District 23 is like the Shadow Creek and Pearland Dawson District. Like District 22 is just like a bunch of pretty darn good teams that I think are actually pretty evenly matched this year. I think that really this, our top 4 in the magazine are Deer Park, Dobie, Channelview, and South Houston. I think you can add in Memorial. Rayburn was a 5-5 team that was a play away basically from making the playoffs last year. And then you've got a team like Pasadena, and Pasadena went 0-10. I'm not here to talk you into Pasadena winning the state championship. What I'm here to tell you is that they've got a ton of experience coming back. They've got 18 starters back. They took their lumps last year. Can they spin that forward and at least play spoiler in this district? But yeah, I think that you're right. This is one of those districts that if they had like a headliner, if they had a team from, that was in our top 25, you might say, man, this is a really good district because there is some quality depth here. And I would expect you're going to see a lot of really tight games in this district because they all seem pretty jammed together, fighting for those 4 playoff spots. I feel good about Deer Park getting in the playoffs. I feel pretty good about Dobie getting in the playoffs with a new coach even. Past that, it is anybody's ball game for those final 2 playoff spots. And it wouldn't be a surprise to see this come down to tiebreakers or something like that. This feels like one of those districts where everybody may beat up on each other, and then suddenly we have to get out the abacus and figure out point differential and penetrations and, who bought dinner when and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to go up north, my old stopping ground, Central Texas. The 2 teams that when I was there was making noise always, Mart Panthers, La Vega. You go look at the rankings. You had Franklin, Lorena, West, Marlin, who used to be just awful. And now, they have really, really good. Crawford Pirates. Of course, you got Mart and then Chilton, Abbott and all of them. 3A Division I, Franklin. Really good team. Lorena, Ray Biles, it just continues to, that Lorena Lepers team, always consistent. Are they, 2 of the favorites to take home another state crown or what?
Like the UIL, you can't say the UIL is not without a sense of humor, in the sense that they did not once but twice put both defending state champs in the same district. They did it in 4A when they lumped China Spring and Stephenville together. And they're doing it again in 3A when they lumped Franklin and Lorena together. So funny joke, guys. And look, this is a Franklin team that last year feels like they got their just desserts. They feel like they were able to get to the mountaintop, and they're going to be very dangerous again. If Bryson Washington is back in the mix, this is a team with plenty of speed. They run Mark Fannon's offense extremely well. The defense is going to be fast and disciplined. They're going to be a team certainly to keep an eye on. Franklin or Lorena is kind of the same way. Lorena is maybe going to have a few more pieces to replace for Coach Ray Biles, who finally got his state championship last year.
Coach Biles, he just been tremendous for so long, and I'm so happy for that. He finally got that state championship. And
he wins his 200th game, and it's at AT&T Stadium. That's pretty darn good. But he brings back a squad that's going to be pretty good defensively, some holes to fill offensively, but one hole they do not have is at receiver with Jaden Porter, who is a freak show at receiver. He would be the best player on pretty much any 6A team, and he's playing at 3A Division I. So it's going to be ridiculous to watch him. They've got some holes to fill though, but that district's very deep. I mean, that's not even to mention Little River Academy, who had a fantastic year last year and brings back, I think they lose like 9 players, not starters, players from last year's squad. And then like Cameron, Yo, and Rockdale, Battle of the Bell.
Great. Cameron, both of those teams always, they're all, historically always really good. And
the way that the district breaks, there's a decent chance that the Battle of the Bell is straight up for a playoff spot. That these two teams are so tightly knit, and because of the way that the district falls, it could be the winner of that game goes to the playoffs and the loser blows up basketballs. Like it could be, which you all you want in a rivalry game is stakes. They've certainly got that this year. I think that district's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really interested. All the attention is going to be paid on Franklin and Lorena. We're all excited about that. But you don't sleep on the Little River Academy, and then those two old rivals and Yo and Rockdale, they're going to get after it too. So that's going to be a really fun district to keep an eye on in Central Texas.
I mean, it's crazy. You have four teams in that district. 2 of those, Franklin Lorena, state champions, and then former state champion Cameron Yo, former state champion Rockdale. I mean, you got championship programs that is just loaded in that district. Crazy.
All jammed together, and they're all going to beat up on each other. And there's a lot of pride between those districts, those teams too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They're going to get after on Friday night. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And I'm going to tell you what, so many champions, you put that many good teams in one district. It's just amazing how, I guess those championship rings will look a little bit like the Rams, Tep. The more diamonds, the more carats in it. Have you seen the Rams Super Bowl ring?
No, I haven't.
Los Angeles, yeah, they actually unveiled the most carats and spent the most money on a Super Bowl ring ever, and it was on ESPN.com, I think, yesterday.
Actually, inside the ring.
Yeah.
Inside the ring.
Yeah. The stadium's inside the ring when they cut it out. We're going to come back. We got pro football talk. We got college football talk. Texas A&M. I know a lot of the Longhorn Aggie audience wants to hear Tep's thoughts. And, of course, the Houston Cougars coming back. Like I said, what a great year it was for Dave Aranda and the Baylor Bears, a 12-win season. Going to come back more with Greg Tepper here on the Sports Guys podcast.com. We're live on there. And, of course, our friends over at YouTube. Appreciate what they do every time out there. It is countdown to kickoff, August 26th. The Vider Pirates at the Silsbee Tigers, CajunCountryRadio.com with yours truly, Robbie Lynn Steptoe, and our friend Kevin Mercado. On the call, timeout for our sponsors. Here it is, the Sports Guys podcast. Hang tight. More with Tepper here on the show. Hang tight.
The Bangtail Pour is comprised of a sweet corn mash base. The front has a subtle sweetness and not too sharp. It has notes of a medium char or white oak for a smoky flavor in the middle, and the tail has a super smooth and warm finish.
And back here on the show again, Greg Tepper, managing editor of the Texas Football, Dave Campbell's Big Time magazine. Check it out, texasfootball.com. You guys can go subscribe now, get that digital subscription, print subscription, do whatever you want to do. Some of the best work they do statewide is the guys put together the Bible of football. If you're a Texas football fan, check it out, texasfootball.com. And go subscribe now. I did mine the other day. You should do yours now if you're just a general football fan or want everything. And then some of the best writers in the state. Back here with Nick Canizales at the sportsguyspodcast.com. And, of course, live on the YouTube channel in conjunction with the Backstage Pass. Of course, coming up next week, some great shows. Carissa Ella, Haley Jensen, and a whole lot more are going to join us here on the podcast too as well. Talking music and sports. Always good to have Tep here on that. All right, let's switch gears. College football. We know the Big 12 is for what's left of it now until I guess a few teams decide more of how much fruit they're going to cut up and share the labor of these power conferences that I see coming up here in 3 or 4 years. The Baylor Bears, and I know Nick's old stomping grounds here, first 12-win season. No matter what head coach is there, it's some of the best talent in the state, some of the best recruiting. Sugar Bowl win, a Big 12 championship. I mean, can we expect the same thing from Baylor here in 22?
I think they're going to be in the mix, most certainly. One of the things that I think is going to be very interesting to see is exactly what this defense looks like. They do have to replace a fair amount of really key, a lot of worker bees on that defense, which is one thing that I'm particularly interested in. Are they going to be able to find, the guys that really made them so strong were all those guys who weren't those superstars on that defense. That's one thing to keep an eye on. Of course, they're turning to Blake Shapen full-time to be the quarterback. They feel good about him. And also the other thing about this Baylor offense is that they're not necessarily reliant on great quarterback play. There's a lot of teams in the state that if they don't get elite quarterback play, they're probably not going anywhere. That is not really the case with Baylor. This is a program that, as long as they're able to run the ball effectively, as long as the running game is going to be able to hum, then they're going to be okay. And that's one thing that I think is probably a good thing about the way that Dave Aranda has helped to build that program. Is he said, all right, you know what, we don't want to be relying on just QB1 because those QB1s come and they go. What are you going to be able to do on a consistent basis? They are a team that is essentially running game and defense. They're in many ways an old school team like that. But I think what you're going to see is guys like Dylan Doyle have to take a step forward at the linebacker spot. This is going to be a team that loses both rush ends. They're going to need guys to step up. And then that secondary takes a big hit. They need to have some guys on the secondary step up in a big way. But the offensive line figures to be great. They feel good about handing the ball to their running backs a fair amount. I feel like, they've got, even replacing guys like Abram Smith and Treston Ebner, they should be pretty solid. This is an interesting year for them. The other thing about Baylor is that they ain't going to sneak up on anybody. This is going to be a team that everybody sees coming. And so they go from the hunter to the hunted. How quickly can they adjust, and is this sustainable there for Dave Aranda? I tend to think it is, but the schedule gets more difficult for them. And that's one thing that's going to be very interesting is how do they handle, going to BYU in week 2, which is a tough matchup. How do they handle going to Ames? How do they handle going to they got to go to Norman this year, right? They got to go to Lubbock, which suddenly is not going to be necessarily a walk in the park. So it's a very interesting year for Baylor. It wouldn't be a surprise to see them take a measured step back, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're perhaps heading in the right direction. I think that's just kind of the natural life cycle of a contender, perhaps.
Yeah, Joey McGuire's done a great job at Texas Tech in their recruiting class. Dave Aranda, great job in their recruiting class. And I've always told people, it's crazy. Baylor does not, they don't have the big 5-star recruits. Hey, they've done it They've done it with 3-star recruits and sprinkling a little bit of 4-star. It just shows that the way they develop their talent over there, it's pretty amazing how they can bring in some lower classification or lower star guys and then mold them. And by the time they're juniors and seniors, boy, they have exploded on the scene. Unlike Texas, Oklahoma, who get the big 4 or 5-star recruits.
I'm about to get Baylor fans throwing tomatoes at my head, but who this Baylor team reminds me of is Gary Patterson era TCU, like when they were really cooking, because that's what they did. They took guys who were like maybe low 4-star every once in a while, but they get a bunch of 3 stars, a couple 2 stars, and they turn them into all conference players. And that's what Baylor's been able to do. I mean that as a compliment. I know folks in Waco may not think that, but I do.
It's 51-48, 51-48.
Exactly right. Yeah, no, but that's how Baylor has built themselves. They're not predicated on having superstars. Whenever they get one, they're happy to make it count. But really what's impressive about them is that you're right. They have not had those number 1 ranked recruiting classes. They've done it with a lot of worker bees. And that's really impressive for what Dave Aranda's built there.
Let's jump into Aggie football. I mean, it's I love it anytime Jimbo and Nick Saban are having the war of the words out there too, whether it be SEC Media Day or through the season talk. But I'll say this: with a backup quarterback coming in, the big win at College Station last year, setting some huge offensive records. I mean, like we've ever seen between two teams in a football game, which was a shootout there. This is going to be, going through the injuries. Haynes King last year, Calzada coming in, did what he did. The recruiting class, Tep, y'all said the magazine, again, TexasFootball.com. Get your subscription today. And, of course, people knew this on ESPN and all the different publications out there. Jimbo went out and got the number one ranked recruiting class for a reason, and that was to kick the crap out of Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's where they're at right now. Where they're at right now is to contend at the highest level. They want to win the SEC. They want to go for the playoff and all that implies. And that, probably means beating Alabama. That means going through that gauntlet in the SEC West. But that's what they're building up for. And bringing the number one recruiting class in the nation is certainly good fodder for that. One thing about this team this year for A&M, offensive line, even losing a guy like Kenyon Green is going to be real good, real good. They're going to be exceptional, able to hold up with anybody. The running back spot, I think they need to give the ball to Devon Chan more, because when he gets the ball, good things tend to happen, and I think they're going to. They've got a couple of receivers on the outside. Aeneas Smith just got in trouble. We don't know what his situation is going to be, but even without him, they've got guys like Chase Lane, Evan Stewart, the superstar freshman, should step in. The defense is going to be interesting, because I think that they've got to replace their secondary is going to be excellent, but the front seven has a number of holes to fill. Now they've got a bunch of 4- and 5-star guys to fill them with, but they're just kind of unproven right now. And so that's what's going to be interesting for them. The other thing for A&M this year is that the schedule, I think, noticeably gets tougher. Whereas they got Alabama at home, they got to go to Tuscaloosa this year. They got to go to Mississippi State. They got to go to Auburn, right? They've got to go to perhaps like real trap game, South Carolina, with Spencer Rattler taking over the quarterback spot. They get Miami at home. I mean, this is a tough schedule for them to navigate. They get Florida back on the schedule. Who knows what that's going to look like this year, but the schedule is noticeably tougher from last year. How are they able to navigate that? It's another situation where this team, but at the same time, last year, I think because of the injuries, finishing with an 8-4 mark, an 8-4 record was perhaps it's hard to say exactly where that ranks, because on one hand, you lost to a headless LSU team at the end of the year, but on the other hand, you did beat Alabama. So it was hard to get a read on them. This could be a team that could be just as good. And if they just stay healthy, they may win an extra game or two. I think for Aggie fans, 2022 is the hop and the step, and then 2023 is the year for the leap and really contending for a national championship.
That was going to ask you there, because I mean, I guess in my opinion, they have kind of underachieved since they, SEC is dominated. I mean, it is a war week in and week out, and people don't realize just how tough it is to win in that conference to begin with. But a lot of my friends, A&M, they should be winning. I don't know, they should be a whole lot better than what they are, and they should be winning 10, 11 games. I understand that, but I mean, just look, even some of the worst teams in the SEC are even really good. Yeah. I mean, so it's just a gauntlet of, and anybody can win on any Saturday. That's the crazy thing.
It's a wood chipper. You know what I mean? They have to go through a wood chipper really to get where they want to go. I mean, they are one of 5 teams every year, or 6 teams, I suppose, that has to play Alabama. Like, they have to play them. And by the way, God forbid Auburn's really good, or God forbid Arkansas keeps it going, right? God forbid Mississippi State and Ole Miss keep it rolling. Like, I mean, you're LSU. Like, if LSU figures it out with Brian Kelly, like, I mean, you're talking about the toughest division in college football, hard stop. And so for A&M, what's interesting for them, I think, going into 2022 is also going to be the quarterback spot. Last year it was Haynes King. It was going to be him. He gets injured. They bring in Zach Calzada. He does his best. He beats Alabama, so he gets a statue. But the what's going to be interesting is they are keeping it close to the vest. It wouldn't be a surprise to see the LSU transfer Max Johnson start. Yeah. They also feel really good about the freshman Connor Wigman coming out of Bridgeland in the Houston area. So the quarterback spot's going to be interesting and really will help tell the tale. But you're right, Nick. This is the kind of team that could lose 3 games, 4 games, and still be like a top 25 team in the nation just because of who they're playing. Because if you lose to 1, 3, 9, and 14, then guess what? You're still a top 20 team potentially.
Yeah. Got to switch gears here because, and in no way, what side of the tracks I'm on. I'm an Aggie before I talk about this team here, but there's a lot of fans out there, and I respect them too, a lot of ways, especially with this rivalry coming back here in 2025. The Texas
Rice.
Longhorns, Steve Sarkisian.
We're not talking Rice. I thought that was a big build up to talk about Mike Bloomgren and the Owls. Let's go.
Tep, you know what? That's my next one. I'll tell you what. But you know what? The Owls are getting better. It's a young program, some great athletes over there doing a great job. But let me fit in real quick. The Texas Longhorns. Interested to hear your opinion because it was a 6-game losing streak during Big 12 play last year. 5-7 in Sark's first year. Quinn Ewers, obviously the best he can now. You got the Manning faithful following here, early commit here for, I guess, coming up next season too as well. This has been, to me, you put the hands, it's pretty simple as a former coach. You got an athlete on the field, keep giving him the rock and run the football. And I don't know if Texas over the last 3 or 4 years has just they've had the ability to do it, but to do it consistently with Bijan Robinson, who now, to me, is a Heisman Trophy candidate right now, although nobody's going to really beat Bryce Young. What do the Horns have to do differently in year 2 for Steve Sarkisian?
It's a couple things. One, the offensive line's got to be better. I think that really cut the legs out from underneath them last year. The offensive line's got to be better. I don't care if you've got Earl Campbell reincarnated back there. It doesn't matter if you're not blocking for him. Now, they've got 4 starters back from last year's offensive line. They feel really good about plugging in Hayden Connor there at the left guard spot. There's ample reason to believe they're going to be better. And very, very, very few teams in America are going to be able to put the skill position talent that Texas is going to have with Quinn Ewers and Bijan Robinson and Xavier Worthy out there. That is from a quarterback, a QB1, RB1, WR1 position. That's one of the very best in America, like plain and simple. That's ridiculous. So one is offensive line. The other part is the defense. The defense has got to take a step forward, most notably in the secondary. The secondary got torched last year. They bring back a fair amount of experience and some highly recruited youngsters that should help fill in those gaps. But between the defensive back and the linebacker spot, they've got to fill some holes. Up front, they should be pretty solid. Guys like Keandre Coburn back in the mix, right? Alfred Collins at the defensive end spot. Maybe just a second year, DeMarvion Overshown back. Maybe just a second year under Steve Sarkisian will do some good. But there's a clear path forward for them, which is more or less get better offensive line play, and the offense should take off and be one of the very best, not just in the Big 12, but perhaps in the country. And then the defense has got to keep pace. If they do that, then Texas had an opportunity to really get back in the mix. But look, we'll find out there on September 10th when Alabama rolls into to Texas. And Aggie fans, I got bad news for you though, because if they beat Alabama, you're never going to hear the end. Never, ever, ever. Never.
Look, I used to get roasted in Waco because Texas. They are the most frustrating team. And look, I'm not a big Texas fan. I root for the local guys, but they're pretty much like the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of hype, big recruiting ranking, all this stuff. And boy, they just underachieve so bad. And I'm like, this talent, and for a long time, I thought, Charlie Strong, Tom Herman, they just did not utilize their talent correctly. They should be way better. They should be not only winning the Big 12 every year, they should be competing for a national title with all of that talent. How come they have not been consistent over the last 10 years and at least have won a national title because of just all the talent they have? Is it because they are just misutilizing that talent they have? Or what's the deal?
Let's go back to a conversation we were having recently about Baylor. We talked about Baylor, about how they take these 2-star, 3-star guys, they turn them into all-conference guys. Their player development at Baylor is really impressive. They take a guy and they get every single ounce out of him. They get every drop of talent out of them. And sometimes at that point, you're going to run into Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's just got better dudes, and you tip your cap, right? Texas has not done that. Texas has had those guys, but they have not. The player development has been what's lacking. It lacked under Charlie Strong. It lacked under Tom Herman. For Steve Sarkisian, it's not fair to judge him on 1 year, quite frankly. But this is when the bill starts coming due for Sark. This is, for them, it's just got to get better at the talent acquisition. Has never been an issue for Texas. Ever. Since it's been an issue since Jack Collins was the quarterback in 1960. They've always had talent. The issue is how much do you get out of that talent? And Texas has plain and simple just not gotten enough juice out of that squeeze. If they do if they were to just if the only thing that improved for them was that they went from being a poor player development team to a pretty good player development team, they would be a bona fide certified top 10 team in the nation every single year. But they've got to get better at that, because as good as it is to get a commitment from Arch Manning, it doesn't matter if you can't get the most out of them. And that's going to be the issue for Texas. And until that changes, I mean, it's been, a while. It's been about 10 years since we've seen them do that. So that's what's got to get better.
That's the beauty of college football. It's pageantry, and of course, you never know what unsung heroes are going to step up on a Saturday on the lead to the road to a national championship. Hey, I want to touch base on the pro level a little bit too, but we're definitely going to have you back 2 or 3 times during the season, of course, on the broadcast for, of course, the Vider Pirates, and here at the sportsguyspodcast.com. Again, Greg Tepper joining us here, the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, which you can subscribe to now at texasfootball.com. Make sure you get a digital and a print subscription out there too as well. All right, let's talk, I guess, the team that Nick's talking about, the one that can't be consistent out there, all this great talent. We just don't know how to put it together. This is going to be a fun, I guess I'll throw it out there. Let's say a more fun year for the Dallas Cowboys, in a sense that we've got to find a running game here. And if that means pulling Zeke off the field and just giving the ball to Pollard more, to me, offensive line, as you've said, you got to win the game in the trenches, Greg. We all know about that too. But even with some pieces being gone, Mike McCarthy, it all starts next week. Training camp opens up. If you're, I guess, America's team, we'll still call it that too as well. I'm not a fan. My wife is, but I'll still watch them on a Sunday. I'm a Cardinal fan. Let's say that. But the hype, Greg, are we buying it this year? Can we finally say they've got the pieces now to get over the hump?
I mean, what's changed though? Like, that's my question. Like, where are we sure that the Cowboys have gotten better from last year? Probably not at receiver, right? They are basically replacing Amari Cooper with James Washington is essentially what they're doing. They're moving everybody up a spot, CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. Who knows how healthy Michael Gallup's going to be. Dak Prescott's back. You got QB1, you're going to have an opportunity. Ezekiel Elliott's got more tread on the tires. And then, by the way, that offensive line, you remember back in the glory days whenever they invested all that capital in the offensive line? That was like 10 years ago when they drafted Tyron Smith. Tyron Smith has been injury plagued. I mean, their offensive line right now, they go and they draft an offensive lineman in the first round, and Tyler Smith, maybe a reach there, but they feel like they've got to address it. They go and they grab him, but your offensive line right now is probably Tyron Smith, Connor McGovern, Tyler Biotish, Zach Martin, and Terrence Steele. Zach Martin's still an all-pro player. Everyone else on that offensive line is okay. Like, that's I have questions. And you think back to last year, what really got them cooking last year was that their offense was just, man, it was setting records. It was so incredible. I think it's fair to say the offense could take a step back. Now, look, they feel pretty good about some of the pieces they've got coming back defensively, and for good reason. DeMarcus Lawrence is a star. Another year with Micah Parsons, of course, is going to do a lot of good. But at the same time, did the secondary get significantly better? I'm not necessarily sure. That's something to keep an eye on. I mean, Trevon Diggs, obviously, with his record-setting season, is that reasonable to expect it again? I don't know. For me, I'm just kind of like wake me up when they win a playoff game. That's kind of where I'm at. Like they should have beaten the 49ers last year. They didn't. The team looks the same or perhaps mildly worse than last year. So now the saving grace for them is that the NFC East looks like it's going to be just a dumpster fire. So they'll probably make the playoffs, but at that point, that's not what the standard is. And so it's they're a confounding team. I tell people all the time, I'm glad that I'm not a Cowboys fan because I don't need that kind of pain in my life. I watch them every week, and I'm just like, man. And my brother's a diehard Cowboys fan, and I'm like, bro, you gotta practice self-care here.
Listen, I've been a Cowboys fan my entire life. My kids, they don't understand. I said, look, the last time they won the Super Bowl was in high school, and it is frustrating every year. And you're right, they didn't do anything in free agency. They used to spend all kinds of money in free agency. Now, since Stephen Jones is kind of taking the reins, they're pretty tight with their money, which is good. They don't have to go over the salary cap every year. But they just I agree, they haven't got better. They have not got better. Zeke Elliott has his tires on his legs are pretty much bald. Yeah. I mean, they ran him to death, the first, few years in the league. And you're right, the offensive line. I mean, the schedule, it's tough. And like you mentioned, look, I think the only threat in the NFC East on paper, Philadelphia. Yeah. So other than that, I mean, they should win this division. But it's the same old Dallas Cowboys until they get over that hump and win something. the hype is not real this year. There's no hype at all. Thankfully, there's nobody's talking about them because they're just not. I don't think they're just that good. They might win 12 games. They might go 12 and what is it? 12 and 5. Well, I don't know if they even go 12 and 5. Hell, they might even go 11-6.
Mm-hmm.
Those first two games, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home, and then Cincinnati Bengals.
I mean, 0-2 is a real possibility. And then, can you imagine the panic? Can you imagine the panic at 0-2 Dallas Cowboys?
Hey, measuring stick, right? You want to know how good you are? Right there, those are two measuring.
And by the way, here's another issue. Another thing for me is you take a look, and basically until Michael Gallup got injured late in the season, or maybe it might have been in the playoffs. Before he got injured, they were relatively healthy all year long last year. Relatively healthy for the most part. You know, Tyron Smith was nicked up here and there and stuff like that, but like they were relatively healthy for the course of the season. Injury luck tends to be a little bit kind of in cycles. So, I mean, if they stay that healthy again, maybe they can make a run, but I don't know. I don't see it. And I wish I'm wrong, because I have a lot of friends who are Cowboys fans. I know it would make them very happy, but I don't see it this year.
I'll tell you, the final topic of the day, I don't even want to talk about it anymore, because we say dumpster fire and they're actually coming, hopefully get the extinguisher to put it out. But I'll say this, what's left of the falling pieces of the ornaments from the Christmas tree that are there right now, talking about the Houston Texans for those fans that are left out there, I guess. Organizations that are in worse shape than the Dallas Cowboys. But let me say this, there are some upswings. There's some things that I've heard about on some stations listening to. I'm not going to name names, but, the hopefuls out there, and I think you got people wanting to still tailgate at NRG and buy tickets and things like that, or get tickets given away to go to a professional football game, which is always nice. But for the quarterback there, Davis Mills, they're taking a long, hard look through that lens, Tep, to see if this is the guy we can build around. They probably had some opportunities and had some discussions with the Baker Mayfields, the Jimmy G's, and things like that, outcast quarterbacks from other organizations. But there's some talent coming in. John Mechie at receiver, interested to see what he does coming out of college. Get a little bit of a running game going here now. Lovie Smith taking over. Can the Texans win 5 or 6 ball games this year, Tep?
Yeah, I think they can be improved. I'll say this. I like, as far as if you're talking about bottoming out and just like trying to rebuild, going in full rebuild mode, I like what they've done so far. You know, I think their draft in 2022 was exceptional, with Derek Stingley, who immediately becomes their best defensive player, and Kenyon Green, who I was wild about at A&M and wild about at Atascocita. He comes in and he can step into a guard spot right away. Jalen Petrie at the safety spot, Baylor kid, right? John Mechie at the wide receiver spot. I think their draft, Christian Harris, the Alabama linebacker, I think their draft was exceptional. But you don't win with rookies, and you don't win in the NFL unless you've got QB1. And as much as I like Davis Mills, and I think he's a good operator, he's not a guy who can go out there and win you ball games. The AFC South is not going to be all that great, so they're going to have an opportunity to win a couple of ball games here and there. I think 5 or 6 wins would be a real nice step forward for this team. I'm not sure I see it, but I guess we'll find out. I don't know. They're a confounding team. They're confounding, but I think at the same time, and Houston sports fans are probably used to hearing this with the Astros, of like, you remember those real lean years for the Astros. Well, those ended up in a World Series, and so it can work, at least the baseball level, but it's going to take some time, and 2022 is not the year for them. If they were to get 5-6 wins, that would represent a real nice step forward and kind of proof of concept that the teardown and rebuild is going as they wanted it to.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you give Lovie more than 3 or less than 3?
Well, I'm a Lovie Smith fan, so I give him as much as he wants, as long as he keeps the beard.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good.
I think you're right. They had a really good draft, probably 3 or 4 years away from being, pretty decent. And get a couple of free agents in there. And you're right about Davis Mills. He's a decent quarterback. Thought he did pretty well, as circumstances. He didn't have that many playmakers, Brandon Cooks, and just kind of some, cast-offs or whatever. Rex Burkhead behind the backfield and stuff. But I mean, this is a team that, hey, we're going to find out what these young rookies are made of, and see if this is the foundation that can do something. You can't buy experience. They have to go live it on the field, and hopefully that they get a lot of experience. They stay healthy, 15, 16, 17 games. And, who knows, because next couple of years, I'll have a lot of games in their belts, and this could be a much improved team and kind of speed up this rebuild a little bit faster.
Toss them into the fire. Toss them into the fire and see what happens. Because at that point, you've got nothing to lose this year. This is not a Super Bowl year. This is not a playoff year. Go out there, play your young guys, let them make mistakes, get it on film, get it on tape, and move forward to 2023. For me, that's the plan. And I would imagine that, they're never going to say it for the Texans because, we've got to sell tickets. But like at the same time, like I think if you were to pump the front office full of truth serum, they tell you, you know what, this is not the year, but we're going to reload, and the process is working the way that we want it to. If we're just seeing the incremental improvement from the guys that the young guys that we're throwing out there.
No doubt.
We'll finish with a two-parter here, and it's kind of some early prognostication predictions here. Put you on the spot here. Favorite to win the Heisman, pretty obvious what you're going to say, and then Super Bowl champion for 2022-23.
Boy. Okay. So the Heisman is interesting. I think Bryce Young is obviously on that short list of guys. You mentioned Bijan Robinson earlier. He is a guy who I think should certainly be on the list of contenders there. I mean, but it's just going to be a matter of can they feed him the ball enough. That's certainly keep an eye on. CJ Stroud, quarterback at Ohio State, is going to be on that mix as well. And then if you're looking for maybe because can Caleb Williams put it together at USC? A guy could be in that mix. I will throw out one other sleeper, and I don't expect it'll happen, but I just got to get it on the record in case it does. I think Clayton Tune at Houston is going to have a monster year, and I think Houston could be this year's Cincinnati. And if that happens, he could find himself in New York. Maybe not winning it, but I think he's one of those sleepers for the Heisman. But I mean, yeah, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Bijan Robinson, maybe Caleb Williams are the short list. As far as a Super Bowl champion, oh geez, every year in the magazine we used to do. I used to do the writers' poll, and I would always put like Cowboys over Texans or Texans over Cowboys, just to make just because it was fun. It's hard to go against the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Chiefs are going to be pretty darn good again. They've got that dude in Patrick Mahomes. I like Patrick. I like that. I'm going to say give me the Chiefs.
Okay. I like that too. Which early pick right there. The AFC West is going to be tough. I mean, Las Vegas much improved, and of course, Los Angeles Chargers. This is going to be a fun year for. Of course, the Broncos now change a guard, Russell Wilson. This is going to be a fun year for the NFL. It's not all pretty much always. Oh, it's the Rams. Hey man, Cincinnati's going to be better. Vegas is better. Kansas City's got some great pieces to come back. Arizona's going to be talented. It's going to be a year for a lot of different teams, a lot of head coaches out there too, Greg, as you know, that going to be out there. Just get in the tournament. Get me a piece. Get me a pass. Get me a ride to the tournament. We'll see what happens after that in the playoff format. Tep, always appreciate the time. Again, you guys subscribe, TexasFootball.com. Managing editor Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, the Bible of Texas football. You guys need to go check it out. Get your digital and, of course, print subscription now in all stores. And I believe you mentioned it to us top of the show, Tep. Next couple of weeks, we can see it. Probably Barnes & Noble. The print edition is coming out real soon for people that want to go buy the hard copy, right?
I can't. I think I lost you guys. Can you hear me?
I still hear. Yeah, we can hear you. We sure can. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I lost.
Now I'm saying the print edition for Texas football, Dave Campbell's magazine, should be available in stores in the next couple of weeks, right?
First week in August is when we're looking at for the 2022 summer edition. Dave Campbell's Texas Football ran into some supply chain issues, kind of like with everything. You can blame Canada. Actually, we get our paper from Canada, and so we got an alert that it was going to be late, and so yeah, blame Canada. Is the new thing here, but yeah, it's unfortunately we desperately want you guys to have it. But the good thing is we do have a limited number here at the office. So if you go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe, we can drop you one in the mail for you today.
No doubt about it. TexasFootball.com, one of the best in the business. Greg Tepper out there for all college, high school, and pro football. Guys, go subscribe and get that digital subscription for about $21 online. It's well worth it too. I love that. Tep. You can just bring your device to a football game, look it up, and stats and polls and rankings and coaching changes. It's all there, man, for a football fan.
Yeah, we wanted to become a one-stop shop for football in the state of Texas. That's kind of what our late founder and editor-in-chief, Jade Campbell, was all about. He was about inclusiveness and making sure that everybody gets covered. And that's a lot of work because Texas is really big, but it's the only way to do it. It's the only way to do it right. And so we're trying to do it at TexasFootball.com and of course, in our print publications.
You got it. Well, Greg, we appreciate the time. Looking forward to catching up during the season. Going to be busy out there reporting scores, calling Vider Pirate games on Friday night. coming up this fall, CajunCountryRadio.com. Let's do it again, man. August is coming up. The hype is there. The countdown to kickoff. And my friend, we're ready. Always appreciate you giving us time here on the Sports Guys podcast.
Happy to do it, boys. You guys have a fantastic football season. We'll be talking soon.
I'll be talking to Greg Tepper out there, managing editor, TexasFootball.com, and Dave Campbell, Texas Football Magazine. Go get a digital subscription. We'll see you guys back on the Backstage Pass next week, Monday, 2:30, with Carissa Ella joining us here at the SportsGuysPodcast.com, also on the YouTube channel. Check out Greg and Texas Football online out there. We'll see you guys very